After everything I gave him, my time, my health, my land, he put me in a place that smelled like bleach and loneliness. And then he used my name to take out a loan. That's when I stopped being his mother and started becoming myself again. They say a mother's love is unconditional. I used to believe that, until I found myself staring out the window of a nursing home room that wasn't mine, wondering when I'd become invisible. My name is Helen Bradshaw. I'm 72 years old, and I spent over 4 decades working the land, sunrise to sunset, calluses to the bone. I raised my son, Luke, with one hand on the plow and the other on his back, pushing him forward, believing if I worked hard enough, he'd never have to struggle the way I did. After my husband died in a tractor accident when Luke was just 7, I didn't cry. I didn't have time to. I got up the next morning and kept going. I tilled. I planted. I paid the mortgage. I showed up to parent-teacher meetings still wearing muddy boots. That was love. That was duty. By the time Luke turned 30, I had grown tired. My knees were bad, my fingers stiff in the morning. He and his wife had plans to expand the farm into something modern. They needed full control. So, I signed over the land, 30 acres, fully paid off. I remember the look in Luke's eyes when I handed him the deed. It wasn't gratitude. It was relief. He said, "Don't worry, Mom. This will always be your home." That was 6 years ago. 3 months ago, I had a minor stroke while planting wildflowers in the back field. I was found slumped beside the rows, my left side numb, my mouth struggling to form words. I remember Luke pacing outside the hospital room, telling the nurse, "She can't stay with us. It's too much. We've got kids, full-time jobs." The next week, I was in a shared room at a nursing home 40 miles from the farm I once broke my back to protect. And just like that, I wasn't a farmer. I wasn't a mother. I wasn't needed. But I still had my name, and even that, I'd soon learn, wasn't safe. The first thing they took from me was my privacy. At Sunset Pines, the nursing home where my son dropped me off, I shared a room with 2 other women. One slept most of the day, the other talked to the walls. The curtains didn't close all the way, and the light flickered over my bed like a dying memory. Every morning, I'd stare at the ceiling and ask myself, how did I end up here? I gave him the land. I gave him my life. And now, I was too much? Luke hadn't visited in 2 weeks. He said the kids were overwhelmed and he was busy with the harvest. He texted a thumbs up when I told him physical therapy was painful. I asked once, just once, if I could come home, just for weekends. He replied, "It's not realistic, Mom. You need 24/7 care." Funny how quickly you go from home to liability. One afternoon, the nurse brought me a cup of broth and whispered, "Your son's on the phone with billing again." I asked why. She looked uncomfortable. "Some families try to cut costs. Sometimes that means fewer therapy sessions, cheaper medication, room changes." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I knew. He wasn't just done taking care of me. He was managing me like a budget line. And I started wondering, how many of you out there have felt it? That moment when you realize the people you gave everything to have quietly started subtracting you from their lives? If you've felt that, if you've been that invisible, tell me in the comments. Not because I need to hear it, but maybe another woman, scrolling late at night, does. Back at Sunset, I waited 40 minutes one night for someone to help me to the bathroom. When they finally came, I'd already had an accident. I was 72 years old, soaked in shame. The nurse cleaned me up gently, but she looked away when I cried. I stopped calling Luke after that. What was the point? A week later, the social worker came by with a stack of papers. "Routine paperwork," she said. I caught a glimpse. A loan document. The name at the top, mine, I hadn't signed anything, and that's when the truth started to crack through the silence. They say the worst kind of pain is the one you carry alone. For weeks, I carried it silently. A nurse's whisper here, a loan document there, and then the phone call that confirmed everything. "Mrs. Bradshaw," the voice on the other end said, "we're just verifying some details from your recent credit application with Union Plains Lending." I froze. "Excuse me?" "You're listed as primary on a secured loan of $150,000, the rep continued. "The collateral is a 30-acre agricultural property in Calhoun County." "My farm." I hung up before she could finish. My son, my only child, had used my name to take out a loan against the land I gave him. He forged my signature, used my identity, then locked me in a forgotten room while he traded my name for money. And I was supposed to stay quiet about it. Be grateful. Stay small. That night, I sat up in bed while the other women in the room slept. One of them snored softly. The other muttered nonsense about birds in the curtains. I just stared at the ceiling. My body may have weakened after the stroke, but my mind was sharp. I could feel the betrayal like a wire wrapped around my chest, tightening each time I thought about how many times I'd said yes to him. "Yes, I'll take care of you. Yes, I'll give you the farm. Yes, I'll sign whatever you need." And he turned around and told the world, "I don't exist unless he needs a signature." That's not just being forgotten, that's being erased. I started keeping a journal. Nothing fancy, just daily notes typed out on my old tablet with one good hand. March 12th, called Union Plains, confirmed forged documents. March 14th, no visit from Luke. March 15, waited 38 minutes for bathroom help. March 16, found out from nurse that room change to shared bed was suggested by a family member. Each line felt like reclaiming a part of myself. Like proof that I had been here. I had mattered. No one else was going to fight for me. So I started gathering every scrap of proof I could find. Because if he was willing to use my name to go into debt, then I was going to use mine to get my life back. The day I stopped asking for answers was the day I started looking for them. It began quietly, with a knock on the door and a young woman holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Bradshaw, I'm Megan, legal volunteer with the Elder Rights Initiative. We work with nursing homes, reviewing patient files and assisting with any irregularities." She looked nervous. She must have heard about me, the quiet woman in 2B who never had visitors. I invited her to sit. As soon as I mentioned the forged loan, her entire posture shifted. She pulled out a notepad and said, "Can I ask, did you ever authorize this transaction in writing or in person?" I laughed, bitter, sharp. "No, I was in here, learning how to walk again with one leg that doesn't listen. Meanwhile, my son was out there signing my name on debt." She didn't smile, just nodded and said, "You may have grounds for a fraud complaint, and if the property was transferred improperly, we might even be able to freeze the lien process." I didn't cry. I didn't say thank you. I just nodded, like a woman who had finally remembered who she used to be. That night, I sat in the dark, watching the hallway lights glow under the door. My roommate was asleep, the machines humming a lullaby of slow decline. But my mind was clear. For years, I had been giving the land, the home, the holidays, the second chances. And in return, I was erased the moment I needed something back. No more. I pulled out the tablet and opened my journal. March 21st, met with Megan, legal steps possible. Will begin document review. March 22nd, requested copy of land transfer, suspected not notarized correctly. March 23rd, heard staff say Luke asked about when mom can be transitioned to Medicaid. He wanted the state to pay for what he refused to. There was a time I would have made excuses for him, said he was stressed, that life was hard, that kids don't know what parents give up. But the truth is, he knew exactly what I gave up, and he chose to take even more. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something quieter, sharper, focused. Let him keep thinking I was weak, that I was just an old woman with a bad leg and no fight left. He didn't know the woman who taught herself to grow food in droughts, raise a child on nothing, and survive heartbreak without a sound. That woman was still here, and she was done asking for anything. Some people fight with noise. Me? I've always believed in quiet storms. After meeting with Megan, everything moved slowly, but in the right direction. We didn't go to the police. Not yet. We didn't threaten or accuse. We built, carefully, brick by quiet brick. Megan connected me to a property lawyer named Charles Yu. Calm, thorough, the kind of man who reads every line twice before speaking once. He confirmed what I suspected. Luke had never finalized the land transfer properly. The deed was missing notarization, a sloppy error by a son too eager to steal. That single technicality gave us ground to file for a temporary freeze on the loan. The bank couldn't touch the land until the issue was resolved. And best of all, Luke had no idea. Meanwhile, I transferred to a better care facility through a grant Megan helped me apply for. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, respectful. The kind of place where you weren't treated like a leftover. I told no one. I didn't call Luke. I didn't ask him for help. I didn't tell him the lien was frozen, or that the county clerk had flagged the loan. I just watched the pieces shift, one by one, while he continued thinking I was tucked away in a forgotten hallway, drooling on myself. One afternoon, I asked a nurse to take me to the facility's small library. I picked up a pen and opened a new page in my journal. April 18th, property freeze granted, legal team filing fraud complaint next. Still no call from Luke. There was a quiet power in writing that down. Not because it proved anything to anyone, but because I saw it. I documented it. I existed. One evening, I overheard a phone call between Luke and a loan officer. He was asking to sell the back 10 acres to cover payments. The officer said the property was now under review by county legal. His voice cracked when he said, "My mother doesn't even know what day it is. How the hell is this happening?" I smiled for the first time in weeks, not out of spite, out of certainty, because I did know what day it was, and I knew exactly what I was doing. You see, when they forget who you are, you don't have to remind them with shouting. You remind them with silence, with signatures, with court filings, with stillness that shakes the ground beneath them. That's the kind of revenge that doesn't make noise. It makes history. The letter came on a Thursday. Heavy envelope, county seal. I held it in my lap like a fragile truth. The fraud case was officially closed. The court ruled the loan invalid. My name was cleared. The lien removed. The property, including all 30 acres, was fully reinstated under my name. Not shared, not co-owned, not held in trust. Mine. Luke was fined for falsifying legal documents and barred from handling any future property transactions without court supervision. A slap on the wrist, maybe, but I didn't need punishment. I needed space. And now, I had it. I didn't call him. I didn't rub it in. I heard from a neighbor that he sold his truck and closed down the backlot equipment lease. The money was gone. The deal he made on my name had caved in like a house built on sand. Meanwhile, I used the farm not to rebuild, but to restore. I leased out the land to a local family with 4 kids and too little to their name. In exchange, they fixed up the old farmhouse. I kept the front bedroom for myself. Just enough space for my books, my tea, and the rocking chair I hadn't touched in years. One morning, I heard gravel crunching out front. I opened the screen door. Luke was standing there, older than I remembered. Tired. He had no flowers, no apology, Just silence. I heard what happened, he finally said. You didn't have to do it that way. I looked at the land behind him. Green, open, untouched by betrayal. I did it the only way that left me whole, I said softly. He nodded, looking down. Can I come in? I didn't answer. Just stood there. Not angry, not bitter, just finished. He got the message. That night, I sat on the porch while the sun sank behind the old silo. The air smelled like cut grass and closure. I opened my notebook and wrote the last line. May 12th. I gave everything. Then I was erased. Now I'm back, without noise, without shame, and without needing anyone's permission. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself quietly, after someone made you feel invisible? If this story reminded you of your own, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Not just for me, but for someone out there who needs to know they aren't alone.